Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Mystics of Texas. Today we are with, of course, Mr. Trey Schmidt, and we are with Gil. Gil, I'm going to let you pronounce your last name because I cannot do it yet.
Yedidia.
What Gil said. And we are today discussing how does one begin to start finding themselves? How do you, as a beginner to things of inner self-exploration, how do you start the whole process of inner examination, finding all the inner personalities inside yourself and how to deal with them? And Gil being a fantastic whole example to us on how to do that. If y'all hear a little tick noise, that's our dog underneath beating the table. So Gil, can you help us and explain to me what sort of advice you would give on how to find my inner self? What would be some of the first steps for me?
What I would start with is to shift the focus to the heart region. The heart is the hub. It is the center of selfhood. And like everything else in life, it is a heart within a heart within a heart. Just like everything else, if you take any sphere, any field, any system, and you will really delve into it to explore it, you will discover that it is multi-layered, that it is multi-spherical. And just like every other component of self or life, it is a field within a field within a field. So when you approach your physical heart as a region, as an area of focus, always remember that the physical manifestation is built by energetic structures that are moving from a densified manifestation into less and less densified and all the way into the formless realms of the fine-grained quantum, subquantum, and beyond. And so when I speak of the heart, and this is something that many are wondering about, and it's very important to address, it is always to start with the physical because it's easy, because it's something that anyone can identify with. But then there is a deeper contemplation, there is an inner gaze that we begin to activate and develop. And it can be done through deep feeling, it can be done through contemplation, it can be done through imagination, through breath, which is a connector, and then to reach in to the formless realms of being, which is the inner higher frequencies, which is where our soul dwells. This is what makes it so mysterious, so seemingly unreachable. And many are struggling with that because those realms cannot be detected by the five senses. And so we have to lay those aside for a moment. And that's not easy for a human being because we are very accustomed to perceive reality through the five senses. It's always a form, it's always an image, it's always a picture or a word or a sound or a color that's familiar to us. And that could be a good start. So I would recommend to focus on the heart region, but then to imagine it opening inwardly like a vortex. And you can see those ripples coming out and in. And this is where you start to tap into the funnel of the heart, which is a funnel through which the divine intelligence is flowing. And as you reach in, you're beginning to connect and attune to the inner higher self, which is where your soul dwells. I would recommend to start with that.
In your explorations into your inner self, Mr. Schmidt, what has guided and helped you recently?
Recently, I have been on a path of when I'm meditating to really get into some different breathing exercises. Like Gil was mentioned, to start with the breathing, and those thoughts that have came in, instead of trying to blank them out of my mind, I would just like see what it is, interpret it, and then let it pass and see how that affects. But then when I get too far off, to bring it back to the deep breathing. And then, like Gil said several times, about try to find your heart. So I've been trying to listen to my heartbeat to bring me back also with the breathing, not just the breathing itself, but to try to get a little bit deeper there. And that's how I've started, but I know there's more levels and levels on top of levels. So,
Well, both of those were really good points. For me, some time back, I started to think and more intellectually as a starting point, that from a mind space only thinking, and I think this might help some people that have never fully tapped into their heart, to start to think, how is my personality? How do others perceive me? Am I being overtly and aggressively loving or hateful? Because sometimes too much showers of love and affection can also repel someone just as much as hate and aggravation, or as a perfect term that your wife mentioned that I heard her say the other day was toxic humor, which was great. It really rang a few bells in my head because I'm very guilty of that. And I was like, man, that's a really good point. And but just on the intellectual level of taking an examination of yourself, almost like you're sitting beside yourself making a note. Okay, how do I handle situations that are uncomfortable with other people? I have something on my chest that I need to get off because it's causing me to have a bad mood, or it's causing me to be sad, or it's causing me to be something that I'm not. You know, it's dwelling inside of me, creating things that are not allowing me to be my natural, happy self. How do I communicate that to the person that I need to do that with? And when I do that, am I doing it in a way that best articulates my thoughts? Or am I acting in a way out of fear or insecurity or anxiety whenever I'm talking because I'm afraid of the reaction of the other person? Or whenever you start to think about, how do I react when things in the day don't go exactly the way I would like them to go? What if somebody said something that I don't know if they meant to say that or not, if they meant to hurt my feelings or not, but I still got my feelings hurt? Am I still mad at that person or upset with that person whenever I shouldn't be because I don't know? I haven't expressed, hey, whatever you just said didn't ring true for me. You hurt my feelings somehow. I didn't agree with that. Instead of addressing it, we just suppress it and then maybe hold even a slight grudge towards somebody whenever they're around in our own circles because we didn't communicate. I think on an intellectual level, one of the beginning places for a lot of people have to be on an intellectual and mind level, and begin to focus on the heart, as you say, and what Trey was talking about too. But if we don't address it here first, we might not ever be able to imagine the heart. A lot of people, once they have developed into being adults, their entire life, the majority of people are, don't be a dreamer. Don't use your imagination. In this country, if you're considered your head's in the clouds, you're a dreamer. You're one of those strange people. You're not even. You need to be productive. You need to go do your job, go do your work, go do this. You have these things you need to do every day, and then you go start them all over again. We don't have time for you to go sit and think about your inner heart. And so they lose their childhood They lose their imaginative abilities. They lose the whole form and meaning of it is to use your expression and your imagination to do exactly what you just described and what Trey is talking about inside of your heart.
You can use your imagination as you get older in different creative ways. Like you were speaking about being angry, and if somebody upsets you, one thing that I've tried to start thinking about, because I've noticed occasionally when I'm around people in large groups, I will get upset quicker than I should about something somebody says. And I thought to myself, you know, what if I was on the other side? Like they upset me, but how much did I upset them? Because I know me and I say things all the time just to get a rise out of people, just to make them upset, because I think it's good that we all face these things. I think everyone should get offended 2 or 3 times a day. Then you start learning how to deal with being offended and you're like, everything's not so bad. So lately I've tried to put into practice something that, all right, that person made me angry, but how did I react and what did I do and how did they feel? Not necessarily because I care about their feelings so much, but I want to resolve the issues that are in my head and in my mind. And if that helps me be a better person to that person, then that's just a better benefit. But I really want to make it good here first.
And making it good in the heart for beginners starting the whole path of self-exploration to become a better person, I think the step is exactly what you expressed. And for a lot of people, the step before that would be on an intellectual level, make an assessment, make an inventory of yourself. How many times do I raise my voice unnecessarily? How many times do I not articulate my thoughts to the people I care about? And in turn, that reflects back onto me in their continuing aggravation that is causing me, or the inner slice of resentment that I start to harbor. So if we don't take an inventory of ourselves and make an account of who we are, when we start to open up our heart, I don't know if some people can even reach their heart until they start to realize on an intellectual basis, what is it that I've even been doing? You know, most people that I know would think, hey, I'm not so bad. You know, I help out people. I do this or that. I'm not really mean to anybody. You know, I mean, that's really what most people would think. I don't need to take an inventory of myself. I'm doing pretty good. I got a decent job. I got a decent this. I got a decent that. I'm good to my kids. My kids have, you know, basically whatever they need. They're not starving. And then they stop there, even though they still have these big voids and emptiness inside, or they have a false sense, even to themselves, a false sense of religious belief that most people in the United States, the numbers keep dwindling every day of people who are attending various religious functions in this country, whether they're, you know, primarily Christianity is dwindling at an enormously fast rate. But people will still say, you know, I believe in my God and, you know, I pray occasionally, knowing full well that they don't, or they may think about it every now and then, but that does not resolve the void, the emptiness that they want to start to begin exploring. And what do you say about exploring your intellectual faculties before starting to focus instantly on the heart? Do you think that is a good idea or not?
I think for some individuals it is. I think it's a very personal thing. It depends on the individual and where they're at within their equilibrium. The relationship between their forces and their forms as an individuated consciousness. And that would be a great advice for some individuals. It could work much better to first to do some mental assessment. What that would bring, it would bring an awareness of the program, and this is very valuable. this is one of the central pieces of that puzzle, is to become aware of the program that is controlling the mind, that is coming from the unconscious collective mind and the subconscious individuated mind. When you are endeavoring and in the inquisitiveness of what you spoke about, which is very valuable, that could open up the awareness of that program, and for the individual to begin to admit even to in themselves. Most don't, but more and more are, because it's inevitable in the new era, is to admit to yourself that you are a programmed thinker, first and foremost. And when you look at those type of behaviors and attributes, you will have to at some point face that program. And then comes the question, okay, well, if I'm a programmed thinker, perceiver, behavior, how do I free myself from that? How do I liberate myself from that?
I think, if I may stop you for a second, I think that most people don't even understand what the program or being programmed even means.
Because that was one big thing when Gil and I just sat down and talked, and we talked for 2.5 hours the other day, and it was very intellectual, and we were bouncing basically what I was thinking, getting his take on things, and it was a very intellectual experience before we did anything else. It was really just seeing where everything sits, everything lies, and what everybody believes, and how to go back from that.
Yeah.
Well, that's on an intellectual basis, but when you continue to mention the program, I think that may be something we could discuss in another video. But just to briefly touch on what that means, well, first and foremost, it is we've been bombarded with messages and advertisements and how to live, how to do things. Compulsory education is a prime example. You need to sit here, you need to respect authority here, you need to do this here, you need to do that there, you need to buy this, you need to use this brand, you need to we've been programmed to such a large measure in our life that you can't even see the program. You don't even recognize it.
Well, to be honest, that is when you know it's doing its best work. When something is acting on you and you don't know it, that's the entire point. Once you start to realize and understand that, well, why do I need a Gucci belt for $500 when this belt that's a premium leather belt for $70 is actually better and will last longer than the Gucci belt? But we've been taught to do that. So once you start awakening, then the program is already starting to break and crumble around you.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad we just barely touched on what the program is, because a lot of people have never even heard the concept. And most people don't connect the dots that it's called TV programming for a reason. You are being programmed. And so, in understanding that, we'll discuss that further in another video. But to step off as a new person, just happen to stumble upon us right now and go, man, how do you explore your inner self? How do you even start that? What does that even mean? A lot of people will think that, for sure. And I agree with you that the first thing that we need to attempt to do is open up the heart, focus on the heart. And for some people that are unable to do that, and they already think that their life is okay, they already think that their actions are all as good as they can probably ever be. Most people think, from the time that they're 40 to the time that they're 80 or 90 or however long they live is, I'm good enough. I don't really need to work on anything. Maybe I overreact sometimes, or I do something sometimes. But they don't think there's anything pressing that they actually need to work on. Most people are like that. We've all been guilty of that at times in our own life. And so on an intellectual basis, for the people that just can't instantly start tapping in and imagining and seeing their heart and explode it open, just start recognizing. Try to start paying attention to yourself. How do I respond? Do I notice that some of my loved ones need to be touched? They need to have the loving tone in my voice. They need to have my arms around them. They need to hear me. I love you. I'm glad to see you. I want to be near you. Do you do that? A lot of people, I know some people that love me that are very close to me that would have a very difficult time expressing that. And they think it's okay, which it's can be, but that's not the level of love and openness that we want as a world. We don't want to live with all these veneers over our hearts. We want to be able to openly express without any bad sort of anxiety, without any fear of rejection, without any fear of, God, what if they don't love me back? And those are things that we're going to discuss much further in other videos. But outside of exploring the heart, is there any tips that you might just suggest before we bring this video to an end on how to start? How does one focus just on the heart? If you were to tell me that, and I said, well, Gil, how do I focus on my heart? Can you tell me just how do I do that?
Yes. I would recommend to take some of the natural, authentic heart energies and attitudes, like compassion, for example, and focus on compassion. Start practicing the feeling of compassion. How does it feel to feel compassion? Or take another one, forgiveness. How does it feel to be forgiving? Because you will discover as you go along with the process that most of the pain and the suffering and the stubbornness of the ego mind program that brings all of those heavy emotions and that brings all of those broken thoughts are coming from the lack of those attributes, those deeper, authentic emotions of the deeper heart. Forgiveness. What are you not forgiving? And most of those are unconscious, are in denial. And so for someone to really expose that, that's work. And like you said, for some, it will be important to mentally just inquire. Look at your thought processes. Look at what flashes in your mind and how it becomes emotional fluctuation. Feel how your body reacts to that and is adapting to that information. And now it comes through your behaviors. And most of that is automated. You are behaving in ways that sometimes you are amazing yourself. So why did I do that? Or why didn't I do that? Why didn't I say that? Or why did I say this? What's important here that I would like to bring into that conversation is that no matter how much you inquire with the mind, it's important to remember that the problem is in the mind. And to find solutions to that problem, you cannot find it in the same level of consciousness where the problem was created. You will have to dive into a deeper, higher, and wider realm of consciousness to find the solutions. And that's when you will have to go to the heart.
Right. That was very well put. Mr. Schmidt, do you have anything to add to that?
I have absolutely nothing to add to that. That was brilliantly said, and I thank you for that.
Everybody, thank y'all for joining us. You can obviously find us, I say obviously, for those of you not been here before, Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, soon to be on Patreon and a few others. Thank y'all for joining us, and go to mysticsoftexas.com and find many, many more fascinating discussions, and Gil will be with us for a while, and so we really enjoy having him here. Thank you, Gil.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin. Thank you, Trey.
Thank you for being here, and have a good day.